Welcome back to the 4A Baseball Podcast. We're kicking it into gear again with another set of our power rankings. Today, we're heading over to the four hole. We're heading to second base. I'm kind of excited. This is a bit of a trickier position, a little bit top heavy, a little bit bottom heavy, and a couple guys that could be filtering in and out of the top 10. How are you good?
Ah!
How are you doing today, guys?
Doing good. This was a very difficult list to make, for me at least. Stebbs, how about you?
I literally still don't know if I like my top 10 or not. I will be up and down on all of these players. I could see all of these players outside of maybe the top three moving up and down the entire year in my head, at least. Like from four and below, I could literally see any of them jumping up.
I think you can make a fair argument for, I think at least five of these guys to be number five.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, do you guys want to kick it off with the same format we've done so far, where we kind of just talk through any honorable mentions we have, or you just want to go straight into the top 10?
Let's talk about honorable mentions.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
go
we
the
all
honorable
have a
mentions.
bunch of honorable mentions.
All right, Tom and I are just going to get this argument out of the way.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
I said that Max Muncy, if he had a declared position, he would be a top 10 second baseman. But obviously he's going to kind of serve as a utility role this year with Chris Taylor getting time at second base, Miguel Vargas getting time at third base. Obviously, he's kind of blocked at first base by the best first baseman in baseball, Freddie Freeman. Go listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it yet. Tom, why are you a Max Muncy hater?
Okay. Well, first of all, he's on the Dodgers, but that's besides the point. There's more reasons to just that. He gets a lot of those average statistics like not batting average, definitely not batting average. Average exit velocity, average barrel rates, and hard hit percentage. Of course, they're going to be high because when he makes contact, the ball usually goes far. The problem is he doesn't hit the ball that often. I mean, we ignore the batting average stat, but batting under 200 is pathetic, and that's just like inexcusable. And I know this guy is like the embodiment of a StatCat nerd's like wet dream, but it's just not enough, I don't think. And he's horrible in the field. Talk about a fall off. Went from the 93rd percentile in
I
2021
think
to a
that
14th percentile.
there's an issue there though, is that he had positional consistency in 2021.
Yes. And let me get to that. I said that's because he has no value on any space of the field other than first base. His defensive value, all of his outs above average come from the first base position. I was checking. I think he's gotten one total career outs above average at second base and like -10 the other seasons. He's not that good at second. I think you're looking at a guy that you'd probably be relying on his bat more often than his fielding. And he's below average in the speed department. That's another tool that's off. And according to OPS Plus, Max Muncy has been a below average hitter in 2 out of the last 3 seasons. So you got a below average hitter and a below average
you
fielder.
counted 2020 that much into his sample when his 2018, 19, and 21 were all fantastic.
I don't know. He just right now the only tool he has is hitting, and when you're not producing on the hitting side and you can't field or have any speed, you get a below average player. I think his ability to walk is the thing that will keep him in this game. And I think if he can make an adjustment at the plate and start to try and hit for more contact instead of those big barrel ones, he will see a great change in his game. And I think this is what he needs. I think he has the potential to jump back up. But his approach right now, the way he's approaching, with a hit it out mentality, he's hitting the ball very hard. It's just not working. I think all of his value as a player comes in the fact that he gets on base and that he can walk at an elite level.
You're only looking at his 2022.
Well, that's kind of what matters.
Not completely. When you have
not
a guy,
entirely, but...
no, when his issue with 2022 was first of all, he stopped swinging, like he started swinging first pitch more often than he ever has, which is way out of character. He was swinging less at meatballs, which is what you kind of need to do. So like these are like easy fixable mechanical things. This isn't like a big glaring red flag anywhere. This is a guy who in 2021 was 10th place MVP finisher. Like you still look at everything under the hood and it's still a very good season besides expected batting average, which is to be expected from a Max Muncy type. And you say that he doesn't make contact when he's still in his bad season, the 40th percentile for whiff rate. He doesn't chase ever.
Well, yeah, then what's the reason? I mean, obviously batting average, horrible statistic, never use batting average, but below 200 is just that's pretty bad. I mean, that's something that's like inexcusably like you can ignore a lot of batting average statistics, but even his expected batting average was in like the first percentile for being bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
think his issue though was like he would get hurt, like miss a couple games, start to get going, miss a couple games. He still played 136 games, but he can never get the momentum going, it felt like.
I think he can definitely revert back to like that power hitter like his 2021 season. I don't know if it's a complete player that I can even put at second base just because all of his value comes on the offensive side. I see him more as a DH in the future. Because you can't put him at first base over Freddie Freeman.
Not
You
at all.
can't put him at second over Chris Taylor because he's a much better defender. It's just a matter of whether he'll be playing in the outfield. So his real value comes at the DH position, and I just don't consider that like
It's
a
not their
well-rounded
DH
second.
either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see where because you got to have that all-around value to be in the top 10. But his main value comes in hitting, which he is pretty elite at when he's hot. And he's probably the best. He probably has the best vision, not vision. Like
Vision.
discipline. Is it vision or discipline?
Vision inherently implies
Yeah.
discipline.
Yeah, so I mean, he's definitely got the discipline at the plate. It's just a matter of whether he can fix his approach and kind of get better at hitting. Like it's an approach thing. You can tell. You just talked about it. So I think if he can fix that, he'll be in the top 10. But right now, I can't put him there.
Stebbs, who is an honorable mention of yours?
So I had three honorable mentions. One of the guy that we were talking about beforehand was Brendan Rodgers. I think we all can see a lot of upside for this guy. He definitely has top 10 second baseman upside, but it's just last season wasn't his strongest outing overall. I really liked what I saw because Brad's been teaching me the ways of baseball savant, and I really liked what I saw from him in terms of percentiles. Um, but what did you guys think about him?
I think that he's a guy that has very high upside. He was slightly above average in terms of WOBA, a little bit better with xWOBA. He won the Gold Glove at second base in the National League this year. His average exit velocity was actually phenomenal. It was 90 average miles per hour, which puts him 76th in MLB. So I think there's a lot of upside there. We kind of got to see it translate to some better numbers. 325 on base percentage isn't the most appealing.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of slugging percentage, but a 408 slug in Colorado is not the most impressive thing either.
Yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers is a guy that's been getting better. Definitely took the next step last season, but I think he still has a lot more room to go. He did not walk in 2021. I think that's a good thing that he's gotten slightly better. He's still below average, but he refused to walk in 2021. And now you can see a little bit more plate vision. He's striking out less and also walking more. It's just a matter of whether that power can translate to actual numbers.
I think he's a guy that could end up in the top 10 at the end of the year.
I think
Yeah,
100%.
I agree with that.
I think he's just waiting to break out.
Stebbs, who else?
I had two more. One of these guys I really wanted to put into the top 10, but I just couldn't find a way to, and it was Jorge Polanco. I really like him. I like him on the Twins. Brad questions, Tom questions.
No,
I
no,
really,
Steph, I like that one.
you like that?
He's my 10. He is at 10 for me, I think.
Exactly. I love Jorge. I like the Twins. I like the Twins this year. I just don't think they're going to be able to put it together as a team to make the playoffs. And then my last guy was Santiago Espinal. I just don't think he's gonna. I really like him, but I don't know how he's gonna play, especially because he'll probably end up splitting time with Whit Merrifield.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
like all
the
those
issue
guys.
with him is he's listed as a bench bat right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure you can start him over Whit Merrifield.
Yeah. Brad, do you have anyone you want to cover before I can get into mine?
I had Brandon Drury of the Los Angeles Angels. I think last year was a very good season. It's just he hasn't proven it in multiple seasons. Like his career's been so up and down that you can't put him in a top 10 yet. He hasn't proven it in multiple seasons. Like his 2019, 271 WOBA, 2020, 162. His ex WOBA in 2021 was 257. And this year, even his ex WOBA was below average.
Yeah, I had him on my list. Devs, is he on your list? Yeah,
Yeah.
he made both of our lists.
Not
A
top
guy,
five, but he
no,
is on
not
my
top
list.
five. He's not top five. He's not that high for me either. But Brad, a guy controversial. You mentioned he was on your list. Steves, I'm pretty sure he must be on your list. But Nico Horner of the Chicago Cubs. This is another guy that I think has the potential to be top 10, like Brad talked about Brandon Drury having, but he just hasn't been good for long enough. I think he's a great player. But this is going into 2023. He's an excellent defender. I think second base will suit him better. His arm strength is not the best, but his glove is amazing. He's got elite speed. But let me talk about the reasons why he didn't make the top 10. Okay. Obviously as a slap, not a slap hitter, but a contact hitter with low power. His expected batting average was 11 ticks lower than his actual batting average. He refuses to walk, doesn't hit fastballs well, and he finds himself in the bottom percentiles in the vast majority of Statcast batting stats. So that in that sense, I see some offensive regression coming next season. But the defense and speed of Nico Horner is undeniably great. So I think he's right at the door.
So my issue with your guys saying that it hasn't been proven over multiple years, which is, yeah, that's fair, but
For which
going
guy?
in for either
Nico
of
Horner.
these guys,
Horner and Drury, yeah.
you both said it for Horner and Drury. So, but like this is going into 2023. So based on what we've seen last year, and again, you do have to take into account former years. That's just how I'm formulating this, is coming off of last year, how I could see them coming into this year with the new team around them.
I think that in the Brandon Drury argument, having the Angels around him doesn't necessarily bode well for him. If we kind of look at their history,
That's fair, but again, I think it will bode well for them, for him at least.
I think there's like the defensive flexibility. I'm just trying to pull up his fielding real quick. So,
He
oh
actually
my
is good in the
God,
field.
it is difficult. Okay. Last year at second base, he had 64 opportunities. He had
Yeah.
more at shortstop, third base, and first base. So this is really going to be his first full season as a second baseman.
Just fair.
So I think there's going to be a little bit of defensive regression. I'm not saying anything too extreme. Um, I just feel like with Brendan Drury, there's so much nothing there. I
Well, let me
feel like,
talk about the opportunity here. So Brandon Drury came from a team which was the Reds,
yeah,
a team where no one needed to pitch to him. And then he left the Reds, went to the Padres, where there's a bunch of threats, didn't play as well. But now he's on the Angels. And as a pitcher, would you rather pitch the ball to Shohei or Trout or Brandon Drury?
I would make
Someone's
it.
going to have to get the ball.
I'm gonna turn that because he only walked 6.7% of the time last year.
No, I'm saying that's why pitchers were challenging him. Wait,
That's exactly against your argument.
no, in the second half. That's why his second half was bad. He that's where we saw the regression. I think maybe his adjustment from going to a bad team to a good team might have been bad for him. And I'm kind of curious how he adjusts to playing on the Angels, a team with
Mediocre team.
a mediocre team that maybe he'll be in the middle of the two. But you did see some regression as he got traded. Obviously, that's how it happens usually. I mean, when people get traded, they don't usually play as well just because it's obviously a new team, new environment.
It's one half
Um,
dozen or the other on that point, but
But I think Brandon Drury on a new team, there's gonna be less people to pitch around him, which probably means less strikeouts, because they're gonna be throwing it in the zone for him. I'm just hoping that it actually turns into something. Brad's doing his extreme
No, I was just
data
seeing what
hack.
I was seeing what like his
Like-
drop off and walk rate was. He dropped from 8% with the Reds to 4% with the Padres.
Yeah,
There's nothing too. I think the issue with him is clearly the expected stats don't like him. Like
yeah.
he even this season where he was well above average in terms of WOBA, he was below average in terms of xWOBA. He doesn't walk. He strikes out a good amount. If we're going to talk about his career stats, I just don't see projectability, especially with his injury history as well.
yeah. I think
that's
that
my
was
hesitancy.
yeah. And I was trying to think between Nico Horner and Brandon Drury. Honestly, it came down to those two. It was 10 and 10.1. Very different play styles, obviously, completely different. But in terms of actual, hold on, I can take a look. Brandon Drury just has more hitting potential than Nico Horner does. Obviously, that can change over the course of an offseason, but I think as of right now, I think I lean a little bit towards the offensive side rather than the defensive side.
For middle infield, in my opinion, I weigh defense a little more. Like not a little more, but I weigh it more than the other positions.
I think the issue that we're getting to with second base, though, is it's not an offensive juggernaut of a position. It's a little bit similar to catcher, where second base doesn't have, you have a couple of guys who had great offensive seasons last year. But when you think of second base, you kind of think of a smaller slap hitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Brendan Drury's a little bit different than that profile. He is kind of a slap hitter, but not to the same amount of contact as someone else would be. Thinking like a Nico Horner who doesn't strike out too much. Are you guys done with honorable mentions? I can get into my number 10.
I just want to say two more guys that I just want to shout out really quick. Ha-Seong Kim, obviously fantastic player.
Yep.
He had the pressure of filling Tatis's role as the everyday shortstop. He's kind of a slap hitter, but his glove is fantastic and he's got good speed on the bases. He also doesn't strike out that often, and he actually walks a little bit more than average. So I think this is an all-around pretty good player. Just like knocking at the door once again on my top 10. And then the last one is Tommy Edman. I think he's the most valuable utility man in the league. But I just don't think he's cracking the top 10 yet.
Tom,
What?
we had a
literally
conversation
we
about this
literally-
before the episode.
Yeah,
That Tommy
Tommy
Edman isn't
Edman
the
is a
second baseman.
shortstop.
he's a shortstop.
Yes, we literally talked about this.
This is
Okay,
when you
my
were
bad.
arguing that we were talking about Tommy
We're
LaStella.
just cut that out.
I cut that part out. Cut
Didn't
that
need to
shit
cut
out.
that out until you said that.
Fuck. Now you have to cut it out. Okay, sorry. That's fucking stupid. He's listed as the second
I'm
baseman.
swapping
It's not. He's
seven.
listed as
I'm
third.
swapping 7 through 10 every 3 seconds.
I'm-
Please
Okay.
start before I make
Let me
this guy.
go back
use
to
it.
I swapped 9 and 10. But
I'm
that's all.
swapping 7 and 10.
All right, so I think we're ready to go into our top 10, which I can kick it off with Nico Horner. I don't think he stands out anyway above like 9 or 10. I think his defense is fantastic. Tom points it out. I don't agree with his hit tool too much. He doesn't whiff though. His defense is fantastic. He's quick. So if you put him in play, if you let him put the ball in play and get on base, he had 20 stolen bases last year. I think with the larger bases this year, you could see a little bit more stolen base potential. Obviously, we're looking in previous seasons, but if you look at last season's sample size, it's about 65% of his career plate appearances. And I'd honestly take a player like that, someone who's going to have a very high potential with a glove, doesn't strike out a ton, could learn to walk a little bit more, if we're going to be honest. But there's a lot of potential here, and he's still going to grow. He's 6'1", 200 pounds, and I think maybe he can come into some power.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping that his hit tool starts to level up as the seasons progress. I think if you get that hit tool on him, he's looking at a top 5. I mean, like, because if you have a good defense, good glove, good speed, and then you can get that bat on top of it, obviously it's going to be a top second baseman in the game. I'm just not convinced that he can have that breakout of power yet. And obviously he's a very valuable player, and I think he'll just continue to get better. So it wouldn't shock me if he ends in that top 10 by the end of the season. So who's your 10th place?
Okay. I'm swapping these guys around. I'm gonna go with Nico Horner too. I again, for the same reasons, I like Nico Horner. He's a very, very good bat to ball type of player. The stat that I've been looking at and used a lot for this was outs above average. He had 13 outs above average last year, and a 281 average, which are both now Stev statistics. I really like this guy. I like the Cubs, and I think he can only benefit from the moves they made this offseason.
Yeah, and I think a guy that I talked about, being able to flip-flop with Nico Horner is my number 10, which is Brandon Drury. I just think this guy is valuable to the team. You saw, obviously, the Padres had a run. That wasn't because of Brandon Drury, but I think he's still a solid player. I think he's above average hitter and he's an above average defender. It's just a matter of whether he can translate that to second base. And if you're good in the field and you're good hitting, that's an above average player. I think that's enough to make my top 10.
I have an argument against Brandon Drury. I think there's just not enough of I think there's a different argument between a rookie and Brandon Drury, where Brandon Drury, there's a large sample size of him not being good and being injured, versus like a rookie where you have a sample size of them being good and Nico Horner.
Yeah, I mean, there's such thing as late bloomers. I mean, there's a chance that this guy very well just had his best season and then never does it again. But there's also a chance that this is kind of it clicking with him, and he's just good for the rest of his career. And we've seen this happen before. Obviously, there's some late bloomers. I can't tell if he's one yet. It's too soon. But I'm on the hype train for this guy. So I'm
I worry about those expected numbers. Like I really do, like him coming back down to earth.
yeah, I'm curious how the 2023 season. This is a guy I'll be watching for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Stebbs, who'd you have coming in at number 9?
Number 9, I had Brandon Drury. I like him slightly more than Nico Horner, and I think the Angels hopefully will not let us down yet again. Again, these are all guys that I feel are pretty interchangeable, as we've all said. But again, there's not much to say on him that hasn't been said.
Tom, what about you?
For my number 9, it's game time. Jorge Polanco will now be officially a second baseman with Correa back in town. Had a down year last season, dealt with some injuries, but still a top bat at second base position. In that 2021 season, 2 years ago, he had 33 home runs and 35 doubles with a 125 OPS plus, which is elite for second baseman. Obviously, we expect him to be little slap hitters. Even in a down year last season, he finished with a 117 OPS plus. Brad, this is a Brad stat. He was in the 91st percentile in expected WOBA last season. And he's actually developed a fantastic eye at the plate. He went from the 25th percentile in 2021 to the 98th percentile in walk rate. Obviously the fielding is something to be desired, but the bat is still on top of the game, and I think he's going to have a bounce back with a healthy season.
I like the pick. I like Jorge Polanco, and it was really hard for me to leave him out.
So I'm not sure you could leave him out and put Brendan Drury in. That's just me.
Again, I'm swapping these guys 1,000 times in my head, and I still don't have my mind made up. So you can, if you want to throw Jorge Polanco in when we do the consensus, I would 100% be okay with that over Brandon Drury.
So
I mean, I like this guy. I like Jorge Polanco. He's just never been a fielder. He's kind of like not a one-dimensional player, but like his strength is hitting. That's what he's going to do. He's kind of like the Xander Bogaerts of second base now. Just a guy who always continues to mash doubles and home runs. I like him. Brad, what do you think about that?
So my 9 and 8, I'm in the Stebbs position right now. I keep flopping them. Right now, I have Ketel Marte as my number 9 and Jorge Polanco as my number 8. I think the defense is both a wash. They both suck at defense.
Yeah.
Like no, like in all seriousness, they're both horrible at defense. So you can't really incorporate that at all. If I'm looking solely at 2022, Jorge Polanco had a lot better of a season. And it just kind of looks like I think Ketel Marte has a higher ceiling, but Jorge Polanco just plays more consistently. And I kind of value that a little bit more. I kind of value him playing on a consistent level just over multiple seasons. And obviously there's the injury risk. I think being able to play at a consistent position this coming season, as Stebbs pointed out, Carlos Correa. And so I got to take Polanco over Marte, and that puts Marte at 9, who's also a great bat. He's always very high in the league and max exit velocity. He launches the ball a good amount. He's a statistician's dream. Like he doesn't strike out too high. He walks at a respectable rate. He's a little bit above league average in terms of walks pretty consistently. It's just I feel like there was a little bit of a fall off in a larger sample size, and that kind of hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, me and Brad appear to be in the same situation here with Ketel Marte and Jorge Polanco being in that flip-flop position. But I ended up putting him at my 8 spot. I think he's an interesting guy to look at because I honestly, looking back before I had actually looked at his statistics, I thought that 2019 was the only good year this guy's ever had. But honestly, in his last 2 seasons, which have been completely injury plagued, he has a 162 game average of 19 home runs, 51 doubles, and an OPS plus at 122. And obviously, that's not being on the field all the time. But when he's on the field, that averages out pretty well. And that's 227 game sample size, right? We're talking about. In his last full season, he finished 4th in MVP voting. That was obviously in 2019. I'm just not sure what steps he has to take to get on the field and stay on the field. But I think this guy not only has one of the highest ceilings at second base, but also in baseball. I think his ceiling is very high.
I'd almost say this is a full season though. 137 games, 558 plate appearances. That's a pretty full season nowadays.
I would agree with that, but
Yeah,
I
just similar to your Max Muncy take. Like he was usually getting on these rolls and then getting injured and then coming back. It wasn't like a long injury that kept him out. It was kind of just these lingering ones. So I think that if you get a whole season, a lot of the game's mental too. I mean, if you can get into a swing of things, a roll, I think Ketel Marte is in that conversation for being one of the best.
Yeah.
Because I think after the 2019 season, I think you could argue that Ketel Marte was probably the top 3 in second base of baseball.
It wasn't that a really weak point of second base though, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think the renaissance came in 2020, 2021. That was just a bunch of new guys coming up.
Stebbs, who was your number 8?
had Ozzy Albies. I really like Ozzy Albies. I've always been high on him, but he was just injury plagued last season, and I really I wished he was healthy more. Tom, what?
What do you mean injury play? He broke his ankle. That was it.
Yeah, but
He
he was
just
hurt.
I know
That's
that's
one
not
injury.
He
He's
was plagued
plagued
by
by
an
that
injury.
broken ankle.
yes, he's plagued by injury, but dude, this guy's played 162 games like 18 times in his career. Like he's very consistently on the field. He's not a guy that I'd be worried about for injuries. I just want to say that. I just want to put that out there.
I mean, okay, I'm not saying I am either, but coming into this season after last, I think I want more from him going into the season. And that leads me into my number 8, which is Ketel Marte. These guys are pretty interchangeable again in my eyes because they were both hurt last year and one broken ankle, the other just little pokes and needle injuries. But I think I want them to be better, and I don't know how they're going to perform, so I don't know really where to put them.
So wait, did you say they were both number 8?
No, I had
Did you-
Albies 8, Marte 7.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. You said Marte.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I was a
Yeah.
little confused.
Again, I am having second base is going to be the death of me. I am having such a hard time placing all of these guys. All of these guys are equal in my head, and I mean, Ketel Marte is a player that you should expect to do good, and I think he will perform better, assuming he's on the field and can perform well because the team around him has gotten a lot better. His outs above average is less than good. He is a -3 outs above average. Ozzy Albies was at a 4 last season before he in the 64 games he did play. I do think he needs to switch to one side. He can't really hit well from both sides of the plate, but I think I'm okay with having Marte at 7 and Albies at 8.
Brad, who did you have at 7? I'm curious because this is where I got into a fork in the road. I really struggle with this one.
I also had Ozzy Albies. Because again, I think we always talked about how at one point he was the best second baseman in baseball, but that was kind of like those inflated 2019 numbers, right? Like his 2021 was respectable. It was good. But in terms of like WRC plus, he's always kind of just under 10% above average, besides that 2019 outlier season where he was 116. Like he doesn't really stand out in any way, in any extreme way. His defense has obviously improved a ton. Stebbs pointed out that he was very good in his small sample size last year before he got injured. It's just he's got to prove that he's healthy after the injury. He's got that against him. And there's just not a wow factor, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'll get into him when I get to him, but my number 7 is a controversial one, and I think this is going to age horribly, which is why I'm kind of questioning it. But mine was Brandon Lau. I think coming back from a down year, I think he's bound to do decent, especially in a shortened year. But I just don't know how he's going to bounce back from it. I don't know about this guy. He did. How many games did he play last year? Let me check.
65.
Yeah,
This,
he played
I mean,
about
60,
the same as Albies.
Yeah, I mean, so in a 65 game sample, he was pretty abysmal. But I mean, you can't really rate him on that. I like did he deal with an injury like while he was on the field too? Did he play while he was injured, or did
I
something
don't
really
know
end the
that much
season?
about his season, to be honest, but I had him at number 6. Just a continuation of him.
Yeah, go for it.
Like he led all second basemen. Obviously, he didn't qualify in barrel percentage. Again, small sample size, take that with a grain of salt. His expected WOBA outperformed his regular WOBA. He was slightly above average. Take that again with a grain of salt. Defense isn't as good as Albie's, but I just see his bat has a much higher upside than Ozzy Albies. Like you look at just 2018, 19, 20, and 21, he's a fantastic hitter. Like I feel like he's a guy that comes up to the plate, especially on a Rays team that lacks stars, and he kind of feels like the impact bat when he's healthy.
Yeah, I think the only reason I said otherwise was because you look at those numbers. I mean, like the not cumulative numbers, like WRC plus, slugging, OPS, all the ones, they're all high. But the most games this guy's played in his career is 149 games, which was last year, and that year was fantastic. But keep in mind, before that, he played 82 games and 56 games, obviously shortened COVID year, and then the rookie season, and then 149. That was one real full season we saw from Brandon Lau. So I was like, this guy has cemented himself as a top second baseman, one of the best hitters in all of baseball, one of the best hitting second basemen in baseball. But I want to see a full season from him. And just judging by how he only managed to play 65 games last year after not playing really a full season in his whole career other than 2021, I'm not really sure if he's going to be able to stay on the field. Is that a concern for you guys?
Not as much. But you can make the same argument for Albies, right? Like 2020, they had enough at bats. 2021, they were pretty healthy. And then 22, they were both injured. And in that, Brandon Lau was so much better.
I mean, so when Albies came up, he obviously had his rookie campaign, and then he played 158 games, 160 games, 2020, then 156 games. So
Okay,
this is a
but
guy that was
you
always on
yelled
the
at
field.
me yesterday for saying I was
Yep.
bringing up 2018 stats for Max Muncy, so I'm doing it here. No
No,
2018 Ozzy Albies stats.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying he's a guy that's always seems to be on the field, other than when he broke his ankle. But yeah, so are you just with your number 6, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so my number 6 is Ozzy Albies, and I would like to talk about them. I don't think StatCap's numbers do this guy justice. He seems to always succeed in the season. He's been a top second baseman since he came up. And I just want to talk about his 162 game averages because in his career, he usually plays 162 games. He has 40 doubles, 26 home runs, 177 hits, and an OPS plus of 107. That's only 7% above average hitting. But you also take into account he's a good fielder, consistently finishing in the top percentile and outs above average. He's gotten a lot better. On top of that, he's also a speed threat. This is another guy that can be in that 30-30 club. I don't know how the injury is going to impact him in that sense, but I don't know how you can dislike a switch hitting second baseman with some of the best tools in baseball. There's a reason this guy had the hype. I mean, a lot of people regard him as the best second baseman, and I'm like, that's weird, that's stupid. But he deserves to be in that conversation for like top 5, top 4. And I think if he comes back as strong as he left, I think he's going to be top 3.
I think he needs to drop one side of hitting.
I agree. I think he needs
Yeah,
to
and that's
focus.
yeah. And which side is that? Which side is he
I'm
stronger
pulling
on?
it
Is he
up right
stronger
now.
from?
Yeah,
I think he's
I don't remember. I think he's stronger from the right side than the left.
As right versus left, I would like more than just batting average. Hello. Where are we going? We are gonna go with. Sorry, give me one moment, please.
You're good. I want to talk about Brandon Lau for a second. I do not have him on my top 10. Um, I don't like him. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 second baseman this season, and that's a hot take for me. Both of you dislike
But you're
that.
not. You're going into the season,
Going into the season, I do not think he will be.
but it's not predicting what he's going to be.
Going into the season, I don't think he is, and I don't think
why
he will
why do you
be
not have
throughout the
respect for
season.
him? He hit 39 home runs. He hit balls pretty far, and he's
He
short
hit-
too, which is crazy. He
I
really has
it's
pop for a short second baseman. Brett says, what is your thing against him? Is there an outlying stat?
there's no outlining stat. It's just this the sample size I saw from him in the last season. His injury, and I do think the injury is going to hurt him.
But
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think he deserved
it's
at
just
least an honorable
something.
mention.
I agree with that, but again, this episode has me frazzled. I'm gonna be honest.
how is he not better than Brendan Drury, Nico Horner?
I love Brandon Drury, so
But still, how's he not better than them?
this episode is the death of me, Bradley.
I
Did you
don't
put him
think
at the
you
bottom of your
understand
list? Did you
how
forget?
good he is.
I probably don't. I just but based on Stev's statistics, he's not anything special to me. And will I eat my words? Most likely, but as of right now, I don't. I don't see him being a top
If
10 player.
Steps, if
going
Brandon
into
Lau
the
hits 35 home runs, will you get a Brandon Lau jersey?
season. If Brandon Lau hits 35 home runs, I will get a Brandon Lau jersey.
I like that. I like that. Brandon Lau hater becomes Brandon Lau fan,
again,
baby.
you could have Brandon Lau in your top 10, and I will not argue with you. I'm so frazzled this episode. I literally don't. Top 5 is the only thing I'm certain of.
Well, you
Are
want to
we
get
all-
into it?
I think we're
Well,
all.
I
Steph,
gotta
who's your
get through
six?
my
Who's your six? Who's
Gleyber
six?
Torres.
I think no, Brad. I think Gleyber Torres
Brad is
deserves
leaving.
Brad's gone. Brad's gone. I think Gleyber Torres deserves an honorable mention
Okay,
at the
I'm
very
gonna be
most.
honest. I had Gleyber Torres at 10, and he
Yes.
has been slowly making his way up my list because I just genuinely do not know where to put any of these guys. I'm gonna
But
be
Gleyber
honest.
Torres above Ozzy Albies is a crime against humanity.
Gleyber Torres above Brandon Lau's a crime against humanity.
Gleyber Torres is probably the 13th best shortstop in base. I mean, second baseman in baseball. I think. I think he's gotten a lot better, and I think he's actually proved himself
And I
a
think
little bit.
I think he's going to keep improving. That's my thing. I don't
But
think
we're
he's
not
done.
talking about predicting.
Going into the goddamn season, Brad.
Then why
I
is
think-
not when why wasn't Rushman one? That is the argument, right?
Going into this season, I think he will make the improvements necessary to be a top 10 second baseman.
What so do you think he's let's see.
He's
You think-
projected to do better by Fangraphs, which isn't saying a lot.
I don't know. I don't know if he's been on the field. I have to check this. I'm gonna check this out real quick. One moment. I'm gonna take a look at Glaber's. I'm gonna compare him side by side to some of the other guys just to clarify.
You literally could tell me. I feel like Aiden right now. Like I don't know what is going on.
Cut that out. Cut that out. Cut that out. Don't say that.
I'm not kidding. I'm
I'll
having
cut it, I'll
such
cut
a
it.
hard time. I'm just completely lost right now.
I think Gleyber Torres is a fine hitter. He hits the ball very hard now. I just.
You want me to
What?
just cut back in and you say that?
Oh yeah. Wait, are we not recording?
Oh, I am. I
No,
just
we're
haven't marked it.
Okay, yeah, 3, 2, 1. I think Gleyber Torres is a fine hitter. I mean, he's up there in exit velocity, hits the ball hard, hard hit percentage is up there, slugging's up there. He just refuses to walk, has a high K rate, not fast on the bases. His glove had at the beginning of his career was absolutely horrendous. I remember that. Hold on, let me go
He's
check his
gotten
outs
better
above
at
average.
it though.
He was in the first percentile in outs above average in 2019, dude. So he has gotten a little bit better.
He's at
and
0 now.
Yeah, he's gotten a little bit better. But his walk rate is down, his strikeout rate is also down, but he's not walking as much. He's kind of a weird case. He could be good this season. I just don't know if he's going to actually make the improvements. Which is actually kind of ironic because every year since 2018, his expected WOBA has gone down just a little bit every single season.
So it kind of looks like he kind of started hitting four seams / sinkers last year. He can't hit off speed at all. I don't see Gleyber Torres as a top 10 second baseman. He's not better than Nico Horner, not better than Ketel Marte, not better than Jorge Polanco, not better than Ozzy Albies, not better than Brandon Lau.
But I will be the Steves defender and say that I think he deserves an honorable mention. I probably should have put him on my honorable mentions, but he is just not top 10. But that does bring us into what are we at? Number 5 now?
Yes.
This should be universal. Brad, I think are you guys all in agreement here? This should be Luis Arias, right?
I am right there with you. Yes.
Okay. I put Luis Arias at 5.
I can put my heartache away. We're gonna pretend the top 5 or bottom 5 didn't happen for
It's
Steves.
a new day, Steves.
It's a new half
Steves.
of the episode.
Yeah. Luis Arias, baby.
Arias is now that he's playing for the Marlins is a second baseman. He was in our first baseman list that was recorded before the trade. Now Luis Arias is a top 5 second baseman. For Tom and I, he's number 5. AL batting champ. He's on a not as good Marlin team, so I can't really put him higher than 5 in my opinion. When he played at second base last year, his outs above average was 1. So I mean, again, there's not anything to dislike about Luis Arias.
So the thing about Luis Arias to me, and Brad, I'm very concerned for who you have at 5 instead of Luis Arias, but we'll get into that in a minute. I think this guy has some of the most elite plate vision, the most elite approach to the plate, and he's been doing this his whole career. He has not slowed down at all. Every season he's finishing in the top in batting average, on base percentage. He doesn't strike out. He's a little bit above average in walks, but he really does not hit the ball hard. He's a slap hitter. And I think 4 through 1 you can argue are all the most complete second baseman in baseball. But Luis Arias is a one-trick pony, and that is getting hits. I just don't see any other value beyond that. If he can somehow improve his glove or maybe get fast somehow, he would be in the top 4. But the top 4 is reserved for 4 players that I think have at least 4 tools. Brad, who is your number 5?
Marcus Semien.
No!
I can't agree with that. I cannot agree with that.
I think
I knew you were
that
gonna say that
there's
too.
a huge regression issue with him. Like there was a huge regression last year. You talk about his fall, like a fall from grace, that happened from 2021 to 2022. And the peripherals kind of match it too. He kind of went into the whole slappy second baseman profile. If we're going to be honest, he kind of did fit that profile last year. And it's true. Like you can look at everything on here. He has a 336 expected WOBA in 21 and a 306 in 22. His home runs, he take like 3 months to hit his first home run. Isn't that a
And
thing?
that is exactly, I know.
Yeah,
right, and
he
let me
only had
explain,
a bad couple months. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
the thing is, those couple of months are the things that are weighing down. Like you look at the cumulative stats, which are obviously not as good to look at, but those StatCast numbers are all being weighed down by the absolutely, we will admit, horrendous first 3 months. But
it's
the end of the
still
season,
like
the end
he's
of the
not
season,
better than Luis Arias. That is the end
he
of
is
the
100%. He is 100% better than Luis Arias.
He's not though.
I think
like
that was
okay.
this
Well, I'm
is-
going to use
he
the stats
had-
argument
it
going
took-
forward. No. Wait a second. Going
Wait.
forward, Luis Arias is a contact hitter, and that will play well in Miami, which is a bigger ballpark. If we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about how the fact Luis Arias is an okay defender at second base, small sample size, 97 attempts, but it was still almost as much as he had at first base, and he had one outs above average at both of them. Marcus Semien was a very good fielder, but he's an aging veteran who's on a team where he's going to be pit. Like he is one of the guys that is going to be attacked because if he's not succeeding, the Rangers aren't succeeding. Luis Arias is a contact hitter who doesn't strike out. There's already a fail-safe there. There is no fail-safe with Marcus Semien. And we have seen that he can
I want to
fail.
wait a little bit. I want to wait a little bit because I have a lot of arguments for Marcus Semien. I put him very high. I'm very high on Marcus Semien. So I'll wait to go into my stuff, but
if Marcus Semien is not barreling the ball, Marcus Semien does not do well. And that happened. And I think it is going to continue to happen. Especially with the increased production of the Mariners, the Angels, and the Astros.
I think if you level out, if you completely get rid of his first 3 months, which by the way happened, but you can't like just get rid of it. But if you look at the pace he was on after that 3 month span, he is still the same Marcus Semien he was when he signed with the Rangers. He was still very good. And like I feel like you can't put someone down their whole season down just because of 3 bad months.
I mean, yes, you can.
Obviously you
because
can.
that's half of
you
a
can.
season.
Yeah, that's how it works. But you know what I'm saying? It also wasn't 3 months. It was like 1 month. It was
his
month.
first 2 months. He was abysmal.
And then August and September he was bad. Or not September. Sorry, I was looking at one specific game in September. September was good. August was bad, and then July and June were solid. But that's 3 out of 6. Like that's April's bad, May is bad, and July is bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will go into my number 4 now, which is Andres Jimenez. I think he's getting to the level of completeness. Obviously, when you have a slap hit mentality like that, you're gonna see some stats that show some regression. Just a guy, he puts the ball in play. But last year he was one of the most elite batters, had one of the best gloves. Did he win the Gold Glove? I think he did. I'm fairly certain.
AL second base Gold Glove. Hello, Bleacher Report. No, I just want to open your article.
I am on the same page as Tom. I had him at 4 while Brad's looking that up. There's nothing that screams crazy about this guy, but he's just an all-around very good player.
And he's got speed on the bases too. I think this is a guy. I mean, he managed to finish with he's elite on the bases, elite in the field. hits for average, hit almost 20 home runs last year. And talk about WOBA, top 9% in WOBA last season. His strikeout numbers are actually a little bit high. He doesn't walk too often, but I see that improving with age. A lot of these young batters have little discipline at the plate. Brad, who are you on for number 4?
For number 4, I have Luis Ariz.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Again, very good contact hitter. Again, Marcus Semien, his ex-WOBA for a slap hitter was the same as Marcus Semien's 2021 when he was this home run juggernaut. And his WAR was lower because that's kind of all he is right now. But again, he had to play all around the field last year. He had no defensive consistency. This year, we know he's going to be the second baseman. He's going to have the opportunity to develop at that position. He walks more than he strikes out. And in all honesty, he's a slap hitter that's proven that he's not going to strike out. And I feel like that has a lot of value when you do that consistently over multiple seasons.
Yeah. Says, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think he makes fair points. I can't really argue with him.
I mean, I think Luis Ariz falling 5th or 4th makes sense. I mean, it just does. In my number 3 spot, I had Jeff McNeil. I think arguably the best glove in the National League. I think he got the award stolen from him by Brendan Rodgers. Jeff McNeil is so much better in the field. Finished higher in outs above average than all the other candidates, including the winner, which I just mentioned. Not just National League and American League, the Major League batting champ. Led second baseman in hits, OPS plus at 140. He has had one bad season in his career. He has had one down year, and that was, I think it was last year or maybe the year before. He had one bad season. He's been consistently on top of the game. And not only that, but his glove's been getting better. And he's now able to play a lot of positions. It's not just second base. He's kind of turning into a utility man while also producing on the offensive side. I think he's one of the most valuable players in all of baseball. Steves, who'd you have at number 3?
I had Marcus Semien. I'm gonna guess Tom had Semien at 2, but I'm gonna let him speak on that later. He had a down season. We talked about that. It was a rough 2.5 months for him. But he batted 248 with a 107 WRC plus. It's not really anything to, I mean, it's not good, but it's not bad. An 8 outs above average. And his team got a lot better, especially from the pitching side. So that can really only help him, I think. And I think he'll have a bounce back year for the doubters like Brad.
I'm not a doubter.
Yeah.
Brad's
the
doubting
Marcus
him.
Semien doubter.
Marcus Semien's a different story. Jeff McNeil, I like him a lot. I have him at, oh fuck, I skipped over one. Back it up, Terry.
Brad,
Put
you
it in
just cursed it
reverse.
up.
No, I was just putting it in reverse.
Okay.
47. Put it in reverse. 47-20. So my
Okay.
number 3 was Andres Jimenez. I think we have the same order, or at least like a similar order. It's just I have Marcus Semien much lower than you guys. It's Andres Jimenez looked like the real deal last year. He fit into that Cleveland team. His sprint speed was high. His defense was high. Under the hood didn't look great, if I'm going to be honest. And that kind of shows in his 38-point regression between WOBA and ex-WOBA. His strikeout's not too bad. It's kind of right there in the middle. But the walk needs to come along. I think that's going to help when he sees more pitches. I mean, he saw 2/3 of his career pitches last season. And in all honesty, I'm looking at his shift metrics just to see if there was a big drop off. He was actually better with no shift. So it kind of looks like he's going to be a lot better next year in terms of WOBA with where the positions or where players are playing their positions. His defense is solid. He can hit off-speed pitches, which is something really impressive, especially a changeup as a left-handed hitter. You know, right-handers love to feast their changeups on left-handers, and he was able to go to the opposite field with them pretty frequently. He's okay at hitting fastballs, sinker, cutter, 2-2-3 run values respectively. I think that there's just a lot to be here. And again, if we're talking about floors, I feel like his is very high.
Yeah, I think he's a reliable bat. I'm just a little bit worried about that regression like you talked about. I'm obviously rooting for him to replicate this season. I don't know if he'll be able to do it, but if he does, he'll be proving me wrong. And I think that if he can replicate this season, he's definitely still in the top 5. I think he'll stay in that spot. I think right now he's still on a bit of a high from having such a good season. I think we're all rating him pretty high. I think he has to do even better for him to stay in the top 5. next year. But bringing us into number 2, Brad, Marcus Semien. This guy literally broke the all-time second base home run record in 2021. I guess that's not an argument, but he's finished top 3 in MVP voting twice in the last 4 seasons. He's upgraded his glove in the field, now in the 95th percentile and outs above average. He won the Gold Glove in 2021 and was a finalist last season. He's got some of the best speed at the second base position. And you power that with the home run threat and the defense. This is a complete player. He's always going to be a home run threat. I know the statistics don't say so, but if we look at the statistics on this guy, we can actually see that. Hold on, where did I go with them? One moment. Oh yeah, Marcus Semien. His expected WOBA was still low in the season last year when he hit how many home runs? The record. He had a 60 expected WOBA, 60th percentile. That's not that good. So you're looking at a guy who is kind of defying all of these advanced metrics and somehow still performing. And at the end of the day, you don't really care about these metrics. You care about the numbers they produce. And this guy, year in and year out, seems to produce those numbers. I don't know how he's doing it, but even in a down year last year, still hitting 26 home runs after not hitting one for the first 2 months, 25 stolen bases. If we see a full season, like a good startup from this guy, I can see this guy easily hitting the 30-30 mark. I mean, if you steal 25 bases in this season, I think he'll be in that 30 stolen bases conversation, while also being one of the best elite power threats in the game.
I worry.
I just,
My big worry about him is the age. I really do worry about it, especially with like a big fall off like he had last year.
I mean, you're talking about like 32-year-old. I think the only thing that will regress maybe is his defense. I think the first thing that goes with age is defense and speed, and you can tell he has some room to give on that now because he's upgraded to both. I think he's gotten faster as a career. Maybe he's just gotten a little more aggressive on the bases, but he is a guy with all the tools you need. It's just a matter of whether age will get to him sooner rather than later. I think I'm really high on him. I think I will admit this is a high ranking for him, but I like his ceiling, and I honestly like his tools the best. This is like, in MLB the show, like the anomaly. He's got speed and power. I don't know how he manages to do it with such bad under the hood stats. And I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not the ones you would expect. But I like Marcus Semien at my number 2 spot. If not, it would be number 3. I think that's the lowest I can put him. He's got a very high ceiling.
I agree with the high ceiling. I worry a lot about just regression with him. I think that, excuse me, what we saw last year is going to be very similar to what we see this year, which again was a 4.2 WAR season. Like that has its value. It's just, I feel like in terms of putting him above Luis Arias and in terms of putting him above Jeff McNeil, Andres Jimenez, I feel like it falls just a little bit short. Especially when Luis Arias's contact tool has such a good failsafe. And not to discredit Marcus Semien, who's in like the mid 70s for strikeout rate, chase rate, and whiff rate. It's just, if there's not much outside of home runs, there's not much offense there, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think when we're looking at these guys, you got Jeff McNeil, who at the beginning of his career, everyone was like, this guy's just a contact bat, just a slap hitter. Now he's showing some signs of slugging, and now showing signs of speed and defense. So he's looking more like a complete player. I think the only player I could argue above Marcus Semien is Jeff McNeil. I think Andres Jimenez, given a few more seasons to prove it, would be in that position. But like all these other players are like these one-dimensional, like focused on one statistic. Like Luis Arias is a contact hitter. That's all he'll ever be. That's really good for a player. It's really useful to a team, but doesn't have that dimension to him. He's not fast on the bases, doesn't have a good glove. So I think at a positional ranking, I think I can put him at like a 5 or a 4, but I don't see him going up because the players have tools like this. Like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, you did say that the only person you could see above him was Jeff McNeil, and I have Jeff
Oh,
McNeil
no.
as number 2.
How could you do this? Okay. That's actually, yeah.
So you talk about a slap hitter, right? Like Luis Arias was in the 49th percentile for average exit velocity. Jeff McNeil's in the 12th. Like this guy slaps the ball around the field. So obviously his expected stat, or his at least his expected like power stats in terms of like X WOBA is going to be worse than his actual WOBA. So I'm not as concerned when looking at his than I would be a Marcus Semien, right? He doesn't strike out much. His walk rate could use a little bit of work. It's been very consistent, 6.2, 6.8, 6.8, 19, 21, 22. Doesn't barrel the ball much, but he doesn't strike out really at all. He really doesn't strike out. And when he swings outside of the zone, he makes fairly decent contact. When he swings outside of the zone, I'm trying to pull it, sorry. He makes contact with the ball, which is something you really need when you're a contact hitter. And especially with someone who's going to have the shift going away, maybe there is an ounce of regression there, but still a Wobo that goes from 397 to 356 has a room to be in about the third, like in the 360, which is very, very good for a slap second baseman who plays great defense, should have won the gold glove, as you point out, doesn't whiff, and is quick. Mid quick, but like career 828 OPS, can't argue with it.
Yeah, I mean OPS. I like OPS. That's the stat I really started at. OPS is a good indicator of how good a player is, and that honestly says how much they can, hit for power too. Honestly, and Jeff McNeil is not just like a low power guy anymore. I think he's hitting. Well, obviously doubles are credited for more in the OPS than some other stats, but like I think him hitting doubles makes him a more valuable player.
Yeah, but you look at it, he's put up 38 doubles in 2019, 14 doubles in 2020, the shortened season. 2021, that was his rough season, supposedly. And 2022, 39 doubles. Like, that's a really good, I guess, power slugging percentage season for someone of his archetype.
For sure. And Stubbs, who'd you have number 2?
I had Jeff McNeil. I mean, so yesterday, Aiden gave us his little quick list that he does, because he always does those. His are just kind of off of names. But I was like, how do you have Jeff McNeil over X guy? And then I looked at his stats and I was like, that's not surprising at all. Jeff McNeil is a very good all-around player, and honestly a player that I think a lot of kind of just casual fans are underestimating. I mean, the 326 average is nothing to really like Brad and Tom talk about how that's not a good metric, but again, for casual fans, that is the metric that we use. And a 326 average is very, very good. And an 8 outs above average is also very good defensively. So I don't know how you could have a guy like Marcus Semien when he did have such a bad season above a guy like Jeff McNeil. And then I'll lead us straight into number 1. I think it's consensus across the board, even though it hurts Brad's soul. Jose Altuve.
I had Jonathan Schoop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Jose Altuve is an amazing player. His defense is regressing, but his offense is somehow is still on par to what it was in his cheating 2017 year. But again, he batted 300 with a 164 WRC plus, 921 OPS, 6.6 WAR. But he is older, so I could see some regression, and maybe he's not number 1 by the end of the season. But what do I know?
I don't know. This guy's just
like, this hurts. It hurts to say it as I wear my Dodgers 2020 World Series champion hoodie. This might be his best year, in all honesty. This might have been his best year.
All around, yeah, I can agree with that.
That was what I was gonna say. He's just got better. I don't know.
He's kind of proven the haters wrong. Like 90th percentile in xWOBA, 90th percentile in strikeout percentage, doesn't whiff, plays solid defense, even though we look at those highlights from a couple seasons ago in the playoffs. He's still really quick. He still walks a ton. Like, I hate to say it, but it's a complete package of a player. Top 10% of the league in xWOBA and the top 2% of the league in WOBA itself. Doesn't strike out. Like, there is a hard argument here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could say is that his expected batting average is 31 ticks lower than his actual batting average. But that's what you get in a player like Jose Altuve. And now he's actually hitting for even more power than he ever has. I mean, he must have made some sort of adjustment at some point in his career, because now more than ever he's hitting home runs and he's actually slugging. He's not just a slap guy anymore. Obviously, look at his exit velocity; it's in the 6th percentile. So I don't know how he's hitting home runs. I don't know how he's hitting them at 5'6", 166 pounds, but that's a different question. He's kind of just an anomaly for me. I don't know how you can have such a low exit velocity, yet such a low hard hit percentage, yet still hits 28 home runs and slug 928. And have an OPS at 928.
I think the counter Stev's regression point, we don't know how this ages. Because I feel like it's an easier strike zone to manage.
That's fair. I can definitely agree with that. I just there's a time for everyone, and I just fear that the time for Altuve is coming soon.
I mean, he's walking more than ever.
Yeah, he's walking more than ever. striking
Okay.
out a little bit more than he used to. But again, there's your kind of expected with age. He was never that big of a hard hit guy, even when he was his most successful. Like he started launching the ball a lot more this year. I think that correlated to some more doubles. Yeah, again, we talk about doubles, 39 doubles. He let
He
himself
did
get
not
hit.
have. He didn't have a run value in the negatives for any pitch in the league. No pitches, literally all positive, which is all positive or zero, which were
Splitters.
only yeah. But
Saw
splitters are
33 splitters, and there's his only negative pitch.
that's bizarre. He doesn't have a weak pitch. There's nothing you can throw at him that will catch him off guard. It's just I mean it's
It's a
so clear the
testament to that
best.
he's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean and that he always has been the best. I think I don't know. I'm not against the cheating scandal, but like I don't know if he ever did it. Do you think he ever did it?
Some guy, there's a podcast about it. It was called The Edge, and this guy like basically sat through with like a noise frequency detector and listened to every single home Astros game and saw
I
when the
remember.
frequency of the trash can came up, and it happened like 5 to 10% of the time for Altuve.
Well, I will say, you saw who the number one person was, right? You saw who the number one was. It was
Was it?
freaking Marwin Gonzalez,
Yeah,
dude. He
and we
batted
saw how
like
that's gone.
200.
And we saw how
Like,
that's gone for him.
how do you cheat and still be bad? I don't understand. But that's besides the point. I think Jose Altuve has proven that he doesn't need it to succeed. I don't. How do you hit 4 opposite field home runs as someone that short? I mean,
Really difficult to extend the arms.
that's what I'm saying. I don't understand. This guy's just an anomaly. I think he's one of the best to do it. Well, for like best short person to do it. I think he's inspiring. No, I think he's inspiring people to play the sport. And I think a lot of people think that this sport's made for tall people. It's made for big athletes. But Jose Altuve is going against that. And I think he's always been a good person outside of baseball.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, you guys ready for the grand reveal?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
All right, at number 10, we've got Nico Horner. At number 9, we've got Jorge Polanco. Number
Like
8, Ketel Marte. Number 7, Ozzy Albies. Number 6, Brandon Lau. Excuse me, swap those two. And number 6, we have Ozzy Albies. Number 7, Brandon Lau. And number 5, we have Luis Ariz. Number 4, we have Andres Jimenez. Number 3, Marcus Semien. Number 2, Jeff McNeil. And number 1, Jose Altuve.
I feel like it averaged out pretty well. I feel like Marcus Semien belongs at 3, but I'm just very high on him. I feel like he's going to have a good season. I feel like he's going to come out the gate reverse of how he did last season. Stes, what do you think?
As the one who has had the worst list, I will be 100% honest with this. My list was terrible. I'll be 100% honest. This is the correct list. This consensus is the correct list, and with Brandon Drury being 10.1. That's my only caveat to that. But
Yeah.
I think this is the top 10 second baseman in the league, and I will do a lot better going forward. I promise.
I think that I accept the fact that Marcus Semien can be very good. I'm just fighting for my opinion on it. If that he's a little bit lower than some of the people, and I'm fine if he gets third place. Like,
Yeah.
he's a very good baseball player. It's just there's more red flags than in some other batters.
Yeah, and I feel like someone that we should have voted more on was Gleyber Torres. I feel like he should have been top 3. I'm just kidding. No, guys, I'm kidding. Guys, that was a
Okay.
joke. No, but I will say I think Ozzy Albies maybe deserves the edge. Who was 5th? Was it Arias?
It was
5th was Rise, yeah.
yeah, Rise.
I feel like it could very well end the season with Arias being below Albies, but it honestly just depends how Albies bounces back from such a brutal injury. He's never had to deal with
I
that.
definitely agree with that.
I mean, for all we know, Ketel Marte could be the best by the end of the season.
That's
All
true.
these guys,
And
there's a lot of
we
high
can do this
ceilings.
at the
There's
end
a
of
lot
the
of low
season.
floors.
Yeah, and obviously we will recap who the best at the end of the season was. I think that second baseman was a really difficult one to talk about because there's just so much. There's a different discussion because there's a lot of different archetype of players within the second base position.
Absolutely. It's so hard. It's so hard to compare someone like Luis Arias to a guy like Jeff McNeil or Marcus Semien, and then trying to compare that with a guy that also like Brandon Lau. Like they're all so different,
Yeah, I think second base. I'm glad we got through it. I think Steves points out the fact that this is the list. This is the right list. And I'm okay with this going into 2023. I don't think this is how it ends from 2023, but this is a fairly accurate depiction of like if I had to take a draft just straight on players, probably who you take going into 23 if you're not looking at like how they're going to progress throughout the season. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the 4A Baseball Podcast. We'll be back later this week with 2 new episodes. You're going to get yourself another ranking and another ranking. You're going to get shortstop and third base this week. If you want to interact with us at all, be sure to follow us on Twitter or TikTok. We also upload a couple shorts from this to our YouTube page. All social media links will be down below in the description. If you've enjoyed, please consider leaving a rating or review. Or if you have any suggestions, please share this with a friend. We will see you all next time on the 4A Baseball Podcast. Peace.